Good morning. I'm David Skeel, the chairman of the Financial Oversight and Management Board for Puerto Rico. And I would like to welcome all of you who are here in person. I'd also like to welcome everybody who's watching online to this 40th public meeting of the Oversight Board, which we're holding in the Sheraton Hotel here at the Puerto Rico Convention Center in San Juan. To start things off, as always, I'll start with a roll call to formally determine which board members are present, either in person or by Zoom. So Dr. Andrew Biggs.
Present.
Judge Arthur Gonzalez. I think is supposed to be present by Zoom.
Present.
Thank you, Arthur. Mr. Antonio Medina.
Presente.
Thank you, Antonio. Mr. John Nixon.
Presente.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Justin Peterson, I believe, is away for this meeting. Dr. Betty Rosa. I think she's present by Zoom as well. Do we have Dr. Rosa? I guess not yet. I am present, and Pedro Pierluisi, Governor of Puerto Rico.
Present.
Thank you, Governor. We have a quorum, so we can now call the meeting to order. As usual, I'd like to ask our General Counsel, Mr. Jaime L. Corey, if he would act as Secretary for the meeting. Thank you, Jaime. Again, I'd like to thank all of you who are in attendance and all of you watching the live stream of the video for joining us this morning. The live stream is available at the Oversight Board's website, www.oversightboard.pr.gov. The audio of the meeting is available in English. There's also a simultaneous Spanish translation. And as usual, the meeting is also being translated into sign language. If you log on to the English website, you get the audio in English. If you log on to the Spanish website, you get the simultaneous translation. As usual, we'll be handling any questions and comments from participants who are online through a form that's available on our website. The form is on the live stream page, and the way it works is you simply complete the form, put any questions or comments you may have on the form. We'll take comments until 15 minutes before the end of this meeting, and then we will promptly provide answers on our website. For those of you who are here in person, we'll give you an opportunity for live comments towards the end of the meeting. So quickly to go through the topics that we have for today, we'll begin with some pro forma matters, approval of the minutes of the last public meeting and of the executive sessions we've had since the last public meeting. That'll be first. Second, we'll have a couple of administrative matters. Then third, we'll have some opening remarks and comments from our executive director, Robert Mujica. We'll then have some remarks from the governor of Puerto Rico, Governor Pierluisi. And then we'll do the certification, or we'll report on the certifications of a number of budgets, and we will certify one budget. We'll certify the Commonwealth budget, and we will do presentations of CRIM, COFINA, UPR, COSAC, HTA, PRASA, PREPA, and PRIDCO. We promise we will be prompt and will not spend an hour on each of those different budget certifications. Then we'll have some more remarks from the governor, and then we'll have some time for public commentary before we conclude the meeting. Before we start the meeting, I'd like just to have a moment of recognition and an acknowledgement of the life and, sadly, the recent death of Dick Ravitch, who many in this room know. Dick died 4 or 5 days ago at the age of 89. He was a friend to many of us. He was a great public servant. He cared deeply about Puerto Rico, and he was the first ex officio member of this board. So it is with great sadness that I note his passing, but also with great appreciation and really joy for everything he did for this country, for New York, and for Puerto Rico. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes of our last public meeting. That meeting was held on April 21, 2023. The proposed minutes are attached to the meeting materials as Appendix A. We also need to approve minutes from a series of executive sessions we had after the last public meeting. Those executive sessions were held on May 12, May 15, May 18, May 26, June 16, June 23, and June 29, 2023. Those minutes, the executive session minutes, are attached as Appendix B. Are there any questions on the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I would like to move to approve the minutes of the Oversight Board's public meeting held on April 21st, 2023, as attached as Appendix A, and the minutes of the executive sessions held on May 12th, May 15th, May 18th, May 26th, June 16th, June 23rd, and June 29th, 2023, which are attached as Appendix B in the form presented to the meeting. Or, well, we don't have any changes, so.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Antonio. And I'll just note before we have the voice vote that Dr. Rosa is now with us, so we have almost all of the board members. As with all of the voice votes, what I'll do is I'll first ask for all in favor to say yes. I'll then ask for any opposed to say no, and ask for any abstention. So with this first motion, would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstention? So that motion carries. We have two of our routine administrative motions as well. Would somebody make the first of those motions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the following motion. Between the adjournment to this meeting and the opening of the Oversight Board's next public meeting, the Oversight Board may consider in executive session any and all matters it is authorized to consider under PROMESA, including first, any certification determinations authorized by PROMESA, including certification determinations under Section 206 of PROMESA. Second, any submissions or authorizations authorized by PROMESA. And third, any filings authorized under Title III of PROMESA, in each case that are set forth as part of the vote to convene such executive session. The Oversight Board may also act by unanimous written consent between meetings in accordance with its bylaws and with such consent to include consent by electronic transmission.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that motion passes, and then we have one last administrative motion, and that relates to unanimous written consents. Would somebody make that motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to confirm and approve the UWCs adopted by the Oversight Board since the adjournment of our last public meeting, which are included I don't have it.
In
Appendix C. Here we are.
Thank you, Antonio. Could we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, I'll finish this, and then should we stop? Yep. Okay, go ahead. All right, let's start that motion again. In case you're wondering what that is, apparently we've lost the connection online, power for the connection, but we will go ahead and can continue unless someone. Someone stops us. All right, why don't we start that again? We don't have to read the motion again or the second again. This is the unanimous written consents. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that motion carries as well, and we can turn to the substance of the meeting. So the beginning of the meeting will be some opening remarks and an update from our Executive Director, Robert Mujica. Robert?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to update you and the rest of the board on the Oversight Board's efforts since our last public convening. Recent activities focused on three primary topics. First, we certified and updated multiple fiscal plans that promote economic growth and have continued working with the government to implement key fiscal plan priorities. Second, we worked closely with the government to develop the 2024 budget proposal for the Commonwealth and each instrumentality. And finally, we continued pursuing all efforts to allow PREPA to exit bankruptcy. In the past few months, the Oversight Board certified 7 updated fiscal plans. Collectively, these fiscal plans turn from stabilizing government's finances to investments in our future. They are transformation plans, forward-looking and focused on the choices and investments that will help to restore and prosperity to the people of Puerto Rico. After this long period of crisis and decline, the newly certified fiscal plans give the island the opportunity to take this moment at the end of bankruptcy, fiscal stability, and economic stimulus, and mark the beginning of another era of growth. As the beginning of real change, the beginning of a period of success, economic growth is the key to unlock that future. Every law, every political decision, every reform, every investment must be viewed through the lens of economic growth. That is why the newly certified fiscal plans double down on priority initiatives to restore market access and accelerate economic growth. It is why they include strategic investments to promote economic development, infrastructure that the island needs, so Puerto Rico can turn this recovery into sustainable growth and an economy that provides opportunities for all. All of the fiscal plans, from the Commonwealth to PREPA to PRASA to HTA and CRIM and others, contain similar themes. They seize the current opportunity to invest in Puerto Rico's growth, to have safer roads, cleaner water, and reliable energy, promote a culture of public sector excellence, and more. But some risks do, however, still exist. In the near term, economic growth has rebounded strongly after the COVID-19 pandemic, as it has in other parts of the country. To a large part, this recovery is driven by unprecedented influx of federal funds. These recovery funds present a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rebuild the island's economy. Puerto Rico has access to over $120 billion in federal recovery funds, equivalent to over 150% of the GNP in the term of disaster relief funding and COVID-19 stimulus. To put this into context, when I was budget director of New York State, the federal funding equivalent would have been $3 trillion to the state of New York. It is an extraordinary opportunity by any measure. But our analysis does not point to sustainable economic growth if these funds are not invested to stimulate growth. If we strip the effects of the relief funds from an economic projections, Puerto Rico's growth would show a decline over the next 5 years. And even now, Puerto Rico's underlying GDP, including federal funds, while climbing, has not returned to 2016 levels. Some economists may argue about the specific data points, but when I sit down with the economists of the island, they don't challenge the overall trend. The point is simple. We need to be focused, and we need to act, and we are starting to see the initial signs of the turnaround. Growth and overall revenue collections are starting to slow, and at the end of May, both the government and the Oversight Board now forecast that revenue collections will be lower than the updated forecast for the current year, but still higher than last year. And this is a trend that we're seeing across the country. So the Oversight Board will continue to monitor this trend. If we work together and implement the reforms in the fiscal plans, however, I am confident we can continue to attract innovation, the capital, workforce, and economic growth required to provide a better future for all. Let me now turn to the 2024 budget process. Many months of deliberation between the government and the Oversight Board, between the staffs and elected officials, went into the preparations of this year's budgets. The budgets set the government's spending priorities for the next 12 months, in conformance with the respective fiscal plans. A government budget is to many just numbers on a page, but each number has meaning and they indicate priorities. Each number in this year's budget has a different effect on the lives of Puerto Rico's residents. These budgets should all be viewed in the context of Puerto Rico's need to maintain fiscal stability while providing for its citizens. The basic principles of budgeting are simple. These principles apply to municipal governments just like they apply to households and families. There's always a temptation to borrow in order to spend more than you can afford. But eventually the bill has to come due, and it came due. Fiscal year 2022, which ended in June 30 of last year, was the first fiscal year for which the government provided the Oversight Board with a general fund budget that the Oversight Board could certify as compliant with the fiscal plan. However, during the year, incremental expenses throughout the year were passed by the legislature, and we worked with the government to identify resources to fund these costs. During fiscal year 2022, the Oversight Board, per promesa, reviewed at least 5 laws that would have increased annual costs by over $312 million outside of the certified budget. As a result of the Oversight Board's review and scoring, however, the board worked with the government to identify funding for these laws so that they were offset within the certified budget. For the current year, 2023, the legislature did not submit a timely and compliant budget to the Oversight Board for certification. As a result, the Oversight Board in 2023 was required to certify a budget for the Commonwealth and then submit it to the government. Further, the government continued its trend of passing laws during the fiscal years that reduced revenues or increased expenditures without identifying ways to pay for the incremental costs. By the time the Oversight Board terminates, the government must be able to pass and maintain balanced budgets with a long-term, multi-year financial plan that is in balance. Otherwise, will we end up with deficits and the kind of painful adjustments that were so difficult to implement by elected officials in the past. In every democracy, the right to determine government spending rests with the legislature. It is the legislature's superior right and one of its primary responsibilities. I'm putting such a fine point on this because, as a former budget director, I feel the effect of promesa on the budget process. Congress created the Oversight Board with its fiscal authority for a reason. The reason was a previous bankruptcy, but promesa, however, did not take away the legislature's responsibility to approve and submit a budget. The budget is a key element of fiscal responsibility owed to the people of Puerto Rico. It is the very core of stability. So this year, despite missing multiple deadlines by the legislature, I'm encouraged by the fact that the governor and the legislature have broken with recent history and produced a budget for the central government that is compliant with the fiscal plan for this year. It was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. I'm very encouraged by this progress, and we hope that this continues. Yesterday, the Oversight Board certified 8 instrumentalities budgets that we also plan to present here today. And now the government has produced a compliant budget. I recommend to the board to certify the central government's 2024 budget as submitted to us and signed by the governor as compliant. This year's budgets are fiscally responsible within Puerto Rico's financial means. They prioritize funding for government services and are critical for the quality of life of Puerto Rico. They fund important investments in future development and growth. And before discussing each certified budget more in detail, I would like to close my remarks by discussing PREPA's transformation. Earlier, I spoke about the need for all decisions to be viewed through the lens of economic growth. Any successful economic plan requires reliable electricity. That is why energy reform was one of the first reforms the Oversight Board tackled. Working with the government, today the PREPA fiscal plan and the transformation process for Puerto Rico's energy system is almost entirely implemented. Working with the government, we broke up the cycle of mismanagement, underinvestment, underperformance of PREPA's inefficient government monopoly. We transferred not ownership, but management of transmission and distribution and legacy generation systems to private operators. Puerto Rico retains these valuable assets, but the government no longer manages them. We created a path to implement the will of Puerto Rico's elected leaders to move aggressively to renewable energy. And the energy system is now overseen by an independent regulator. These are all critical achievements. The building blocks are now in place. This doesn't mean we are done. I live here. I know electricity is not yet reliable. I know PREPA is way behind in moving to renewable energy. I'm not satisfied, but the point is this. The government and the Oversight Board helped to create a system that can and will improve, rather than being stuck with the old PREPA that would never move, never improve, never change. PREPA had no incentive to change. For Luma and Genera, a lot is at stake: reputation, business success, and strong financial performance. Luma and Genera cannot survive without successful outcomes for PREPA and, more importantly, its customers. Unlike PREPA, they cannot stand still. I am convinced we will see change. Electricity will become more reliable, more affordable, and cleaner. We are just at the beginning of that change. The transformation is based on accountability. The people of Puerto Rico retain ownership of the grid and power plants and are empowered to hold private operators accountable. Both Luma and Genera must meet objective performance metrics defined by their regulator, PREP. The other important element to this transformation is PREPA's ability to exit bankruptcy. Last week, the Oversight Board certified an updated fiscal plan for PREPA. It provides a roadmap for viable energy system for Puerto Rico that will deliver more reliable, cleaner electricity to its residents and its businesses. From a technical perspective, the new fiscal plan updated projections for electricity demand and costs and outlines efficient deployment of more than $15 billion in federal funding to make significant investments in the energy system. It also reflects other factors, such as households and businesses continuing to switch to more energy-efficient appliances and adding rooftop solar panels. These changes in projections impact the fiscal plan's debt sustainability analysis and the amount of debt affordable under PREPA's plan of adjustment. As a result of PREPA's updated fiscal plan, the Oversight Board recently amended the plan of adjustment to restructure more than $10 billion of debt and other claims against PREPA before pension claims. The Oversight Board has been analyzing carefully and dispassionately how much debt PREPA can pay and made a determination strictly based on the available data. This is why the updated proposal provides for the issuance of consideration worth approximately $2.5 billion to creditors. Ultimately, the guiding principle behind PREPA's debt restructuring is sustainability. In conclusion, as you can see, while there is more ground to cover, we continue to advance the Oversight Board's mission to create a necessary foundation for economic growth and to restore opportunity for the people of Puerto Rico. With that, Mr. Chairman, I recommend we turn to the presentations and the individual budgets that we are going to discuss today. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And before we turn to the various budgets, I'd like to turn the floor over to Governor Pierluisi, who would like to make a few remarks before we start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thanks to all the members of the board, its executive director and staff, to all of you here today and to those watching through the various electronic media for your interest in and commitment to our common goal of a better Puerto Rico. The approval of the Commonwealth's budget for fiscal year 2024 represents another milestone on our road to fiscal responsibility and sustainable economic growth in Puerto Rico. And I will have more to say about that later in this hearing. But before I do that, I would like to comment briefly on the most recent developments announced earlier this week regarding the ongoing process of restructuring the legacy debt of the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority. And if you don't mind, I would like to switch to Spanish at this time.
Of course.
¿Cómo no? It is impossible to exaggerate the importance of the debt adjustment plan of PREPA as an element that is crucial in the transformation process of our electrical system and therefore the future economic development of Puerto Rico and the well-being of all Puerto Ricans. In simple words, if we don't resolve this matter, we will not be able to achieve our goal to have a resilient electrical system that is modern and affordable. Last Friday, the Oversight Board certified a new fiscal plan for PREPA, which reflects that the market trends and projections of experts point to a substantial reduction in the consumption of energy in Puerto Rico and the revenues of PREPA. This reality results in a significant reduction of PREPA's capacity to pay its debt. Our administration is committed to completing the restructuring of PREPA's debt and transforming the electrical system of Puerto Rico so that it will be modern, resilient, and reliable. To this end, at all times, I have insisted that any adjustment plan for PREPA must be affordable and sustainable. That is why, in March last year, I made the decision to support the debt that we had inherited, and that only cut its debt by 33%. Vindicating our position, last Monday, Judge Laura Taylor-Swain held that bondholders of PREPA have a non-secured claim against PREPA of only $2,388 million, a reduction of 75% in comparison with the approximately $9 billion bondholders were claiming. This is our second crucial victory that we achieved in federal court to the benefit of the customers of PREPA, because at the beginning of this year and in collaboration with the FOMB, we prevailed before Judge Swain in our claim that bondholders do not have secured claims against PREPA or its future revenues. These two decisions by the Judge Swain will have transcendental, significant consequences for the restructuring of PREPA and are the result of the diligence and zealous efforts that my administration has represented and fought for the customers of PREPA and the people of Puerto Rico. In simple words, my administration will continue to do everything possible to avoid any significant increases in the cost of electricity for our residents and businesses as a result of the restructuring of PREPA's debt, thereby guaranteeing economic viability for Puerto Rico. And it is that we must keep very much in our minds that our Energy Law, Act 17 of 2009, establishes an inspirational goal that in Puerto Rico, now no more than 20 cents be paid for kilowatt hours. And that goal didn't come from a void. It is a goal that is clearly tied to the sustainable economic development that we desire for Puerto Rico and the quality of life that we also aim to have in Puerto Rico. And I hope that this goal, this board will keep in mind, and with all due respect, also Judge Taylor-Swain, when restructuring PREPA's debt. We have a unique opportunity to mold the future of the energy sector of Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico's in general. And this can only be achieved if the adjustment plan for PREPA is sustainable and affordable, and at the same time respects the role of the Energy Bureau in establishment and review of electrical tariffs in Puerto Rico. After all, it is the Bureau that is the only entity responsible under the law to guarantee the reasonability of the rates of the electrical system in Puerto Rico. And we will continue to further the restructuring of the grid and seeking efficient solutions in the production of energy, and also using microgrids and helping our people who have lower resources to acquire solar energy systems.
I look forward to continued collaboration with the Oversight Board in the ongoing process of restructuring PREPA's legacy debt and transforming Puerto Rico's electric power system for the benefit of the people of Puerto Rico. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Governor. We'll turn now to the budget presentations for our 2024 budgets for the Commonwealth and for a number of Commonwealth instrumentalities. I'd like to thank Robert Mujica, our staff, our advisors, everybody who's been involved in this process. It has been extraordinarily time-consuming. They've done a superb job, as I am confident that you'll agree when you look into these budgets. The budgets that we'll present today are budgets that I believe we can all be proud of and that will truly move the ball forward for Puerto Rico. I'd like to also thank the governor and the governor's office and the legislature for their collaboration in this process. I'm happy to say, as Robert has already said, that this has been a joint project, and we're all ending up on the same page, which is a very good thing for Puerto Rico. We'll start with the Commonwealth budget. And I'd like to turn things over to Ginorli Maldonado, who is our Fiscal Plan and Budget Director, and Ginorli will be doing the presentation. Welcome, Ginorli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I would like to present the board with some of the key highlights in the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget, which was jointly developed by the governor, the legislature, and the Oversight Board. This year's budget is balanced, continues to support critical services, and encourages economic growth to benefit the residents of Puerto Rico. The budget also includes major strategic investments, which supports strong financial management and builds government capacity through the Civil Service Reform Program. The board was also able to allocate additional funding beyond base levels to municipalities, UPR, and towards other critical needs. In addition, the proposed budget funds key social service programs supporting the elderly, youth, and underserved areas across the island. Finally, this year's proposed budget continues to fund critical pension needs, including billions to pay current pension costs, the third contribution to the newly established Pension Reserve Trust, and enhanced defined contribution payments to the police. Please turn to the next page. On aggregate and consolidated basis, as illustrated on this page, the total central government proposed budget for the fiscal year 24 is $31 billion. This amount represents one of the largest budgets in Puerto Rico's history. This year's budget reflects the multi-billion-dollar federal funds influx that Puerto Rico is set to receive, continues budgeting for the newly restructured debt, and includes all government expenditure to ensure transparency and accessibility for the public. In addition, there is more than $5 billion of federal stimulus related to disaster relief funds available to the Commonwealth that is expected to be disbursed in the fiscal year 24. Next page. This year's budget continues the trend of prioritizing investments in health and education-related needs. It also includes more than $3 billion for families and children, $2.6 billion for pay-go pension payments, and billions of dollars to fund housing, economic development initiatives, and the Office of the CFO. As mentioned earlier and shown on the left, the budget also includes $1 billion in contributions to the newly created Pension Reserve Trust and to enhance retirement payments to police officers. It is the third time this contribution will be made and will continue every year for the next 7 years. Mr. Chairman, I want to highlight the pension trust because it was designed to set aside sufficient funding over time so that no retiree has to worry about whether the government has money set aside to pay pension benefits. Please turn to the next page. One of the main sources of spending for the government continues to be the general fund. This year's general fund budget highlights key priorities in education, public safety, and healthcare, among others. This page shows a more detailed breakdown of spending, including over $1 billion towards economic development of the island, which will help support Puerto Rico's economic growth and competitiveness. This year's proposed budget also continues to adopt innovative practices, such as nearly $300 million in milestone budgeting, which will be released once the government meets certain requirements. In addition, targeted investments are also been made in areas aligned with the fiscal plan pillars to support economic growth, strong financial management, and public sector excellence. Many of these investments were developed alongside with the government, which benefit various stakeholders, including the residents, employees, and retirees. As examples, economic growth investments include constructions of the ferry terminals, funding to municipalities, and support for education programs impacting high-risk youth. Over $250 million to strengthen financial management and transparency. This will be achieved by implementing technological upgrades, enhancing revenue collection efforts, and setting aside funds to meet contractual obligations. And almost $500 million has been made available to enhance public sector services and operations. This includes allocations for medical supplies, social programs to minors, maintenance and repairs at health facilities, funding to the University of Puerto Rico, and additional support for the ongoing civil service reform program. These investment decisions included in the proposed 2024 budget and any future funding decisions will need to be evaluated based on available funding sources during the budget process. Ensuring enough funding is available to sustain the Commonwealth's capital needs is important, and so the fiscal year 2024 budget allocates almost $1 billion for that purpose. The majority of these budgeted amounts are allocated for specific needs at specific agencies. However, an unallocated amount of $39 million remains for needs identified throughout the fiscal year. The general fund budget includes almost $500 million for capital spending, of which over 90% are for specifically identified projects. The primary categories of spending this year include construction and infrastructure, technology, transportation, and equipment. The appropriation to the University of Puerto Rico in the certified budget is $500 million, which includes $58 million funding to comply with Act 53. In addition, there is over $100 million available upon the completion of milestones that foster academic excellence, economic development, and financial responsibility. In total, the University of Puerto Rico may receive almost $630 million of total funding in the next fiscal year 24. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to highlight that in the proposed budget, Puerto Rico's municipalities will have substantial resources available to fund their operations. In total, the municipalities will receive almost $280 million from the general fund in fiscal year 24. This includes $44 million to be allocated to various municipalities through the Municipal Equalization Fund, $51 million through the Extraordinary Waste Fund in Act 53, and an extra $30 million to provide one-time funding that the Oversight Board authorized to support the most vulnerable municipalities. Additionally, Municipalities will receive $81 million of financial relief in accordance with the assessed municipal relief formula. And finally, it is important to remember that municipalities have billions in federal stimulus, COVID, and FEMA relief funds available to support their needs. In conclusion, the proposed Commonwealth budget for the fiscal year 24 provides adequate funding to support key priorities and investments while contributing to Puerto Rico's stability and ultimate economic growth. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation on the fiscal year 24 proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginorli. Are there any comments from board members that they'd like to make before we have a motion to approve the budget? Yeah, John?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just, excuse me, mention that I am appreciative of everybody who came together to make this a reality. I know this doesn't happen without a lot of hard work from the staff and the teams in both the governor's office and the budget office, FOMB and the legislature and the legislative staff. Having been a former budget director myself, I know the hours and hours that are spent putting this together. And I would just like to also emphasize the importance of this collaboration and cooperation in putting the budgets together. It is so important for the Commonwealth to be operating together in a way that will provide sustainable financing going forward. And the budget process, putting budgets out on time, putting budgets that are together, that are balanced, is really a key element for the growth of the island and the prosperity of the people. So I'm just it was kind of touch and go as to whether we're going to have a budget that we could certify that was passed and signed by the governor. And I'm just, for one, as a budget professional, very pleased that we got to this point in the process.
Thanks a lot, John.
Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely. Antonio?
Thank you. Just briefly, I'm very proud of the budget that we have accomplished together with the legislature and the governor. And I'll just briefly switch to Spanish. Es crítico.
This is critical so that we can get back to the markets. We need to get these balanced budgets that have consensus, and they need to go through the proper process, through the House, the Senate, and for them to come with the governor's signature. That's how Puerto Rico can truly recapture its economy, its growth, and to achieve Promesa's goals, which is first to get us out of the bankruptcy process, but more importantly than that we can get back to the market at some reasonable rates. And so I thank you. I see Omar Marrero here, the governor, and some legislative leaders, OPEC's director, Treasury Secretary, and a lot of people. It's a lot of people who are involved in this process, and I think that we should celebrate these achievements. The university has had a significant increase of more than $100 million in the budget. The municipalities, we're very much aware of their municipalities' needs, and they've had substantial increases in this budget. And I think that working together is how we can get to Puerto Rico to a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. As I mentioned earlier, this is the one budget that we will actually be certifying today, in part because it has came down to the last minute, lots of back and forth, lots of drama, and a happy ending. I'd like to ask if somebody will make a motion to approve the budget or
I'll
to
move.
certify the budget.
I'll move.
Thank you, Antonio. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Would all in favor please say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that budget is certified. We'll turn now to the instrumentality budgets.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Governor.
I would like to make some remarks now because they relate to the
Absolutely.
to the government's budget. Thank you. First of all, I'm pleased to say that over the last few months, my administration has been working collaboratively with the Oversight Board to develop a balanced budget that reflects our people's priorities. So I want to thank the board, its executive director, and its entire staff for its valuable support and spirit of cooperation throughout this process. I also want to thank my team at the executive branch of our government, particularly the head of our Oficina de Gerencia y Presupuesto, Management and Budget, Juan Carlos Blanco, and his team, because this is a budgeting matter. And I know for a fact that they kept in touch, in close communication with the staff director, Gene Orley, the team, the board's team, throughout the whole process, as well as with the Comisiones de Hacienda, the Treasury committees in both House and Senate, to accomplish what we just accomplished. So thank you, Juan Carlos. Even though, as can be expected, we didn't agree on everything, I have to say that probably more than 95% of this budget that was just certified here today reflects agreement on the part of both the government and the board. Furthermore, we both went to great lengths to work with the legislature, and again, although there were important differences regarding a number of items, the fact is that they were a few, and our people and all stakeholders can rest assured that the budget that has been certified today is the product of consensus among all of us. And so, today marks another milestone on our road towards fiscal responsibility and sustainable economic development. All our economic indicators point to an unquestionable improvement, not only in particular sectors such as tourism and manufacturing, but in our economy as a whole, with record numbers of jobs created, historically high labor participation rates, and historically low unemployment rates, at the same time that we continue to invest in our human capital with higher wages and better working conditions and continue to advance important social reforms such as our education reform. Further, we have already completed or are about to complete the issuance of all pending audited financial statements for our government, which will further boost our credibility and commitment to transparency before the investor community. And in that regard, I should praise our Secretary of the Treasury, Francisco Párez, and his team. In fact, the U.S. and the global investor community and even credit agencies are recognizing the significant progress we're making in our path forward, as I was personally able to witness during our recent meetings in Wall Street last month. Now, if you allow me, I will again switch to Spanish.
Of course.
Today, we have just certified a balanced budget for the government of Puerto Rico for fiscal year 2023-2024 to begin tomorrow, July 1st. This is the third time in which the government will be operating and finishing its fiscal year, closing its fiscal year in accordance with a balanced budget. 2 years and 6 months since I started as the governor, we have come out of the government's bankruptcy. The island's reconstruction is going very well. Our economic development is on a good path. And the community of investors is now betting on Puerto Rico again. We have established collaborative relationships with no precedence with the federal government, and we have focused on achieving social justice for our people. Our goal continues to be to improve the quality of life of every Puerto Rican. Our economy has come back to positive ground after a hard decade, and we continue to grow sustainably and have over 100,000 more jobs on our economy than at the beginning of 2021. Workforce participation rate has increased, and these are real numbers, irrefutable numbers. We have refocused on promoting Puerto Rico, improving our business environment, fostering manufacture, exportation, supporting the tourism sector, and encouraging our farmers and entrepreneurs, and training our workforce for the future. And now we can look toward the future again with great optimism. I am pleased to acknowledge that the budget to take effect tomorrow will greatly reflect the priorities that the government has in its programs. And as it was to be expected, we did not agree on everything. More than 95% of the budget reflects consent between the government and the FOMB. Therefore, I thank the FOMB executive director, their entire staff, for their collaboration in drawing up and approving and certifying this budget. Furthermore, I also want to thank the legislature because they worked until the very last minute, seeking a consent. As the president of the board said, it was really up to the last minute, but it was achieved. And I was able to sign it. And this is very good because it demonstrates that we have a responsible government and a board that is collaborating with this responsible government. This budget addresses the needs of our municipalities, providing access to the municipalities. To the number Geraldine mentioned, who by the way gave a very good presentation as always, to funds that are assigned to the municipalities, only state I'm mentioning right now, not federal funds. And also included there is a fund for essential services, which will be aimed precisely to the municipalities that have some economic and fiscal vulnerability to guarantee they will be able to provide the essential services that our people require. Also, this budget reflects an increase in the central government's contribution to the University of Puerto Rico, and the number again that the board gave us is of $625 million for the university in funds coming from the central government. In addition, the budget includes $95 million to continue the reform of public service, $37 million for the classification and compensation plan for the judicial branch, and $73 million to continue the improvements for the benefits, retirement benefits for our police officers. Also, it includes $86 million for pay increases to teachers and educational personnel and employees of PREPA who moved to the central government also, and $2.37 million to hire social workers that we greatly need for good pay, obviously. In addition, this provides millions in dollars in allocations for services to the elderly and for the health department and public safety department and the comprehensive cancer center, funds for the Martin Peña Channel, the construction of a new terminal for maritime transportation in Ceiba, and to assist nonprofit organizations who provide support to the government with community services. We have achieved a budget that is not only maybe the biggest in our history, but also that's not so important. What is more important is that it really addresses the needs of our people. Every Puerto Rican can be sure that I will continue to always fight for the initiatives that they need to meet their needs and aspirations.
In sum, the 2023-24 budget provides funding for Puerto Rico's most essential programs and initiatives. While we believe there's still room for improvement in the budget, my administration is not going to sacrifice progress simply because we do not agree on each and every line item. Everyone can rest assured that I will continue fighting for the public policies that matter most to our people. But I am convinced that we can continue working together for the well-being of the people of Puerto Rico as we should. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Governor, for those remarks. Let's turn now to the instrumentality budgets. These will be presentations since we've already certified the budgets, but we'll give a succinct presentation of of each one of these certified budgets. So we'll start with the Center for Municipal Revenue Collection, CRIM. That budget will be presented by Germán Ojeda, who is our Municipal Affairs and Legislative Review Director. Welcome, Germán.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. As it relates to the Centro de Recaudación de Ingresos Municipales, or CRIM, I'm proud to report on the successful collaboration between the Oversight Board and CRIM, as it is known across the island. Property taxes represent the most significant revenue stream to municipalities. Therefore, increasing tax collection represents a significant opportunity for CRIM and the municipalities to improve their finances. Through joint efforts, the Oversight Board and CRIM were able to collaborate and certify the 2023 fiscal plan, and as a result, today I also present to you the FY fiscal 24 CRIM budget. On June 23rd, CRIM submitted a balanced budget compliant with the 2023 CRIM fiscal plan and Section 202E2 of PROMESA, and for the first time, the Oversight Board was able to certify CRIM's balanced budget as developed and submitted by the instrumentality. CRIM's fiscal 2024 budget of $33 million consists of the 5% administrative fee from property tax collections and a continued increase in revenues from charges to bank, sales of maps, rental income, and interest income. It also provides funding for necessary resources that will allow CRIM to achieve the jointly developed fiscal plan measures, resulting in collections of more property tax revenue without increasing tax rates on the island. Most notably, this year's certified budget includes critical investments to optimize organizational structures, integrate technology systems, roll out a default management office, and accelerate the implementation of the 2023 fiscal plan measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Germán. Don't go anywhere. The next budget presentation that we have will be on COFINA, and that will also be presented by Germán Ojeda.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. As it relates to COFINA, or the Puerto Rico Sales Tax Financing Corporation, the sales and use tax collections are split between the Commonwealth General Fund and COFINA until COFINA is allocated an amount equal to the required annual debt service amount. In fiscal year 2023, the COFINA allocation was fully collected by October 2022, 4 months after the start of the fiscal year. For fiscal year 2024, a similar collection period is expected. COFINA earns interest income on the sales and use tax deposit it receives, which interest income is used to fund the COFINA operations without COFINA having to rely on appropriations from the Commonwealth General Fund. The investment income on sales and use tax deposits has been historically high due to the high interest rate environment. The surplus in investment income for fiscal year 2023 and projected in fiscal year 2024 will be used to fund potential shortfalls in future years. However, there are currently no operating shortfalls projected in the COFINA long-term operating budget. COFINA is well capitalized and has sufficient cash on hand. Therefore, the Oversight Board was able to certify COFINA's 5th annual budget after COFINA's successful exit from Title III in the second quarter of fiscal year 2019, which reduced COFINA's debt obligation from $18 billion to $12 billion. The $1.7 million fiscal year 2024 operating budget supports limited staff, certain professional services, and other non-personal expenses required for the COFINA operation. Also, COFINA will continue with a memorandum of understanding it maintains with AFAF, which provides low-cost administrative support. Thank you.
Thank you, Germán. Next, we have the fiscal year 2024 budget for the University of Puerto Rico. That budget will be presented by Elisa Guardiola, our UPR Pensions and COSEC Director. Welcome, Elisa.
Good morning, board members, Governor Pierluisi, and all those listening in. Today, I present the fiscal year 2024 certified budget for the University of Puerto Rico. As described in the 2023 Commonwealth Fiscal Plan, the University of Puerto Rico is one of the issues that are holding back fiscal stability and economic growth progress, where there is no consensus on how to proceed. The Oversight Board has exercised its responsibility to make sure that fiscally sound decisions are made, but continues to explore more comprehensive discussions to engage and build consensus with stakeholders on potential solutions for improving outcomes. To that end, the UPR, together with the Department of Economic Development, commenced a series of meetings with the goal of achieving consensus on the vision and develop a series of strategic initiatives that will support the UPR to achieve fiscal and academic sustainability and strengthen its role in Puerto Rico's economic growth. While this series of meetings take place, the Oversight Board concurrently continue with the budget process. This fiscal year 2024 certified budget includes $1.2 billion in revenues, including incremental central government appropriations by $58 million as per Act 53 of 2021, and additional funding that has been identified to benefit students, including $30.9 million to reinstate appropriations for capital expenditure for infrastructure and facilities improvements, and $100 million of incremental funding appropriated under the fiscal year 24 Commonwealth budget, subject to the UPR's alignment and commitment to collaborate and agree on clear and concise objectives and goals that are tied to supporting academic excellence, economic development, and achieving financial responsibility. The budget continues to promote revenue enhancement and diversification, such as providing technical and training services to the central government, revenue from slot machines, and campus-generated inflows. In addition, the fiscal year 2021 certified budget includes yearly disbursements of $10 million from the Commonwealth Scholarship Fund to cover tuition costs on behalf of students with financial needs. UPR total expenditure consists of $1.25 billion. The certified budget continues to invest in academic excellence, with increasing payroll to cover essential academic positions for accreditations and an increase in 3% in academic faculty. At the same time, the fiscal year 2024 certified budget continues to consider non-academic payroll efficiencies to be achieved through shared services, back office consolidation, and medical insurance normalization. The certified budget goal continues to be to strengthen the academic mission even further and continue the much-needed operational efficiencies, integration of administrative functions of the 11 campuses, elimination of redundancy and complexity, and reduction of costs. The fiscal year 2024 certified budget reflects a pension contribution of $124 million based on the required implementation of a full freeze pension reform. Not enacting these measures represent an ongoing future liability to the university, limiting the available resources to fulfill the university's mission in the future. The certified budget also includes $43 million allocated to maintenance and equipment, a total of $43 million for capital expenditure from general fund and federal funds, and inflation adjustments for utilities and transportation, among others. The certified budget also considers that the UPR will use institutional prior year funds identified to cover capital expenditure needs. The fiscal year 2024 certified budget considers input from the UPR, governing board, the UPR's administration, and its stakeholders. We thank all of them for the commitment and will continue to engage with UPR stakeholders along with higher education and economic development leaders in pursuit of options for how to move forward. Through open and transparent consultation, the Oversight Board will strive for a common understanding of the facts and challenges, and ideally agreement on a vision and plan that can be implemented to anchor the UPR in its vital role to the economic prosperity of the island. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Next, we have the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Public Corporation for the Supervision and Insurance of Cooperatives, or COSEC, and that will also be presented by Lisa.
Thank you. Today I present the fiscal year 2024 certified budget for COSEC. The fiscal year 2024 COSEC certified budget of $35.9 million comprises of $26 million of regular premiums received from the financial cooperatives and $9.9 million in interest earned in the COSEC Insurance Fund. The total fiscal year 24 expenditure of $13.1 million includes $9.1 million in payroll and $4 million in operational expenditures. Payroll includes an appropriation for the salary increases from the implementation of the revised classification and remuneration plan that aligns with the method, principles, and approaches employed in the development of the central government new uniform classification and remuneration plan developed through the civil service reform. Operational expenditure include professional services toward continued investment in COSEC database to further develop risk and compliance certification with the 2023 COSEC fiscal plan. Increase in purchase services expenses to provide seminars to co-ops related to COSEC regulatory role and incorporate some of the inflation increases. The fiscal year 2024 certified budget considers input from COSEC and the government. We thank them for the commitment and cooperation during the budget development process. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Highways and Transportation Authority, or HTA. That will be presented by our Executive Director, Robert Mujica.
Thank you, Chairman. Today we present the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Puerto Rico Highway and Transport Authority, better known as HTA. The budget reinforces HTA's November 2022 certified fiscal plan, which highlights the importance of investing in the modernization and improvement of Puerto Rico's transportation infrastructure. These investments are an essential component of the Commonwealth's strategy to promote sustainable, long-term economic development, improve the quality of life of its residents, and transform Puerto Rico into an attractive business destination. The HTA fiscal year 2024 budget continues to empower HTA to do its part to support these goals by accelerating its capital delivery program to make necessary investments and improve Puerto Rico's transportation network. The budget also ensures the authority's fiscal sustainability and ability to fulfill its obligations from the plan of adjustment confirmed in December of 2022. The fiscal year 2024 budget projects higher revenue than fiscal year 2023, a $48 million or 5% increase as a result of ongoing record levels of federal funding made to HTA through programs, including the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill and the American Recovery Plan Act. Higher toll revenue projections due to toll fare revenue enhancement measures and Commonwealth funding intended to be used by HTA to fund costs associated with non-toll road assets. The budget also includes a total of $940 million in revenues, including operating revenues, toll fares, toll fines, transit funds, Commonwealth appropriations for CapEx, and federal funds for the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. The budget also calls for continued growth in capital expenditures across federal, non-federal, and transit programs. The fiscal year 2024 budget calls for capital expenditures to grow by $558 million, or $62 million, or 12% increase in capital funding relative to fiscal year 2023 budget. This budget continues to represent a historic opportunity for HTA to accelerate progress to improve road safety, quality, and performance. However, to seize the opportunity, HTA must improve its capital delivery process and become increasingly efficient and effective in deploying these investments. Many of the measures outlined in the certified fiscal plan provide a path for HTA to achieve these capabilities, and the Oversight Board looks forward to continuing to work with HTA on this front. As this is HTA's first full fiscal year budget following the confirmation of the HTA Plan of Adjustment, and with major structural changes underway as the P3 process for the toll roads make progress, HTA's budget reflects HTA's continued commitment to abide by the fiscally responsible practices that were previously approved. The FY 2024 budget assumes that HTA will continue to implement key revenue measures that provide for its fiscal sustainability, including achieving higher toll revenues through further increases and reestablishing the toll fine system. These revenue measures are essential to ensure that HTA's ability to fulfill the plan of adjustment that was approved last year and obligations that are in the fiscal year 2024 budget. HTA's ability to fulfill these commitments in future years while continuing to invest in Puerto Rico's infrastructure and roads. The FY 2024 budget includes debt service payments of $48 million that are funding through its toll roads, a requirement of the plan of adjustment. In conclusion, the fiscal year 2024 budget ensures HTA's ability to fulfill its obligations under the confirmed plan of adjustment and reinforces the historic opportunity that exists for HTA to play its central role as one of the main drivers of economic growth on the island. The budget provides for the ability to deliver a historic level of capital improvement projects that should result in a better, more reliable, and safer transportation network for Puerto Rico's residents and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And next, we have the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Puerto Rico Aqueduct and Sewer Authority, or PRASA, and that will again be presented by Robert Mujica.
Thank you, Chairman. Today we present the fiscal year 2020.
Vary it a little bit, so it's not just one person talking.
Today we present the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Puerto Rico Aqueduct and Sewer Authority, better known as PRASA. The fiscal year 2024 budget represents a significant milestone in PRASA's journey as a covered entity under PROMESA, demonstrating a consistent track record of balanced budgets. This achievement spans from 2019 through 2022 and 2023, which is underway and almost done. PRASA's improved fiscal condition is primarily due to the incremental revenues generated from the gradual implementation of modest rate increases since January 1st of 2018. Also, starting in FY 2023, PRASA reorganized its rate structure to ensure a sustainable revenue stream and more efficient cost allocation. Another factor contributing to PRASA's financial stability is the reduction in debt service obligations as a result of strategic reprofiling transactions. Additionally, PRASA has been the recipient of historic levels of federal funding from FEMA and other partners, which have played a crucial role as a low-cost alternative supporting its ambitious capital improvement program. These fiscal measures, coupled with the federal funds, have temporarily eliminated structural fiscal deficits, enabling PRASA to focus on addressing long-standing operational shortcomings that have hindered its full revenue generation and cost-saving potential. The fiscal year 2024 budget provides revenues of $1.1 billion, which are inclusive of the benefits from the rate adjustments already implemented in 2023, and the $20 million expected in incremental revenues during fiscal year 2024. Rate adjustments have been critical for PRASA to meet its financial obligations without sacrificing necessary investments in maintenance and system-wide improvements. On the other hand, operational expenditures have increased materially, nearly $35 million, mainly as a result of higher allocations for water and wastewater treatment costs. Specifically, the fiscal year 2024 budget saw an increase of $20 million in projected electricity expenditures and nearly $4 million in chemical costs. Other discretionary labor expenditures, such as revising compensation structures, should not come at the expense of ratepayer or from foregone investments. Instead, they should be the function of performance and needs of PRASA to advance its mission to serve the people of Puerto Rico. PRASA's limited revenue profile, with its exposure to increased costs, highlights the importance of ongoing assessments of operational opportunities to generate additional revenues and reduce overall costs. In line with this objective, PRASA has secured $330 million, the largest project obligation thus far from the historical award of FEMA funds, for its meter replacement program, which expects to generate $144 million in incremental revenues. Through the two-phase initiative consisting of a pilot and an island-wide effort, PRASA aims to replace its current mechanical meters with more advanced smart metering infrastructure. By leveraging this sophisticated technology, PRASA can reduce its billing errors from metering inaccuracies and improve its capability in assessing water losses on the commercial side. Initiatives like the water replacement program are critical for PRASA to generate additional revenue, all while shifting the economic burden away from the ratepayers. In addition, the program will potentially change PRASA's operations with respect to customer service information technology and the deployment of certain field crews, which in turn presents an additional opportunity for the enhancement of the water utilities operation. The fiscal year 2024 budget allocates sufficient funding for PRASA to initiate the pilot for the meter replacement program, which is scheduled to happen early in the upcoming fiscal year. All in all, PRASA's fiscal year 2024 budget demonstrates steady progress towards achieving fiscal responsibility while shifting its focus towards key operational initiatives that will enable long-term sustainability for the benefit of Puerto Rico's residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Our next to last presentation for this meeting, and the last one that Robert will be presenting, is the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, or PREPA. The PREPA budget, as I just said, will again fall to Robert.
Thank you. I got the short straw. Today we'll present to you the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, better known as PREPA. PREPA's fiscal year 2024 certified budget is of particular importance because this is the budget for a year in which several key milestones in the Puerto Rico energy sector transformation are to be achieved, and where key enabling resource allocation and investments will be reflected for the first time. Fiscal year 2024 marks the first year which a private operator, Genera, will be in charge of operating GENCO. Lastly, it marks the first year in which the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau has issued a resolution with its determination of PREPA's system-wide budget for an operationally unbundled PREPA with private operators prior to the start of the new fiscal year and prior to the Oversight Board's certification process. While the Oversight Board retains its rights and powers under PROMESA to approve final binding budgets in its sole discretion, this year's PREPA's certified budget reflects PREB's determination and should serve as a sign of the progress and maturation process of the Puerto Rico energy sector transformation and regulatory landscape. Nonetheless, this budget still reflects the challenges faced by Puerto Rico's energy system and underscores the need to complete a full transformation of PREPA. In particular, volatile fuel and commodity prices, combined with a declining revenue stream and an aging infrastructure, makes this transformation imperative. Large capital works are required and are finally slated to begin gaining steam this coming fiscal year. Puerto Rico must have an energy sector that is modern, agile, and capable of efficiently providing reliable electricity service at the lowest possible cost. For fiscal year 2024, PREPA's certified budget projects total revenues of $3.9 billion. While total revenues in fiscal year 2024 are expected to be approximately $1 billion lower when compared to fiscal year 2023. Most of the decrease is primarily attributed to lower fuel costs, following a stabilization of energy markets after the Ukraine invasion. However, other contributing factors include a lower load forecast driven by declining population, reduced economic activity, and behavioral changes, including rooftop solar adoption. Compared to fiscal year 2023's forecast, the system's base revenue, or the revenue used to finance operation and maintenance activities, is expected to decrease by $58 million to $1.1 billion. The base revenues for this year are supplemented by a PREB-approved cash on hand to be used as a one-time enabling investment aimed at stabilizing the electrical system, while FEMA emergency generation is available on island and in preparation for an anticipated highly active hurricane season. Thus, approximately 30% of gross revenues, or $1.2 billion, is available for the operation and maintenance of Puerto Rico's electrical system. Recognizing the constrained and fiscal and operating environment, PREPA's fiscal year 2024 certified budget prioritizes critical operational maintenance activities across both transmission and distribution systems. For that reason, PREB increased GENCO's allocation to aggressively increase generation unit maintenance works in 2024 to take advantage of the FEMA temporary emergency generation. GENCO, now operated by Genera, has $324 million to operate and maintain thermoelectric units. GRIDCO, operated by Luma, has $636 million to fulfill its duties as the T&D system operator, which are complemented by over $800 million in federal funds, which, while outside the OMB's certified budget, are expected to be deployed for capital expenditures in fiscal year 24. On the other hand, PREPA's remaining legacy entities, HoldCo, HydroCo, total operating budgets amount to $21.9 million and $13.5 million, respectively. To that effect, the certified budget lowers labor operating expenditures, mainly driven by right-sizing initiatives reflecting PREPA's new role after Genera's transition and a smaller labor footprint at GENCO. The certified fiscal plan also reflects non-labor expenditures, partly driven by Genera's service commencement as the thermoelectric unit operator and its accompanying servicing fee. Genera's contracts has a mix of fixed and merit-based fees that incentivize improved generation unit availability, reduced forced outage rates, increased reliability, and cost savings, among other things. Lastly, the certified budget also reflects higher rate-funded necessary expenditures to maximize and leverage the emergency generation units provided by FEMA. In summary, the certified budget provides enabling investments in the stabilization of the Puerto Rico energy system with an emphasis on shoring up generation, and includes a much-needed right-sizing of the PREPA legacy operation in order to maximize limited ratepayer funds going towards a higher return on system investments, but also reflective of the challenges PREPA and its operators must work to overcome, particularly as it transitions towards its transformed end state. As outlined in Puerto Rico's Energy Public Policy Act, PREPA's certified fiscal plan, and the certified fiscal plan for the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. The next budget presentation is that of the Puerto Rico Industrial Development Company, PRIDCO. The fiscal year 2024 budget process will be presented by Ginorli Maldonado.
I think there's been a coup. It is as written. So the last one, right, is we're fighting over who gets to turn things over to Ginorli. But I think Robert is correct that it was his responsibility. So the last budget presentation is PRIDCO, and Ginorli Maldonado will be doing that.
Thank you. I am pleased to announce that the fiscal year 24 certified budget for PRIDCO was jointly developed by the Oversight Board and PRIDCO. This past year has been critical for PRIDCO. PRIDCO managed to make significant progress in the process of hiring a third-party manager. Specifically, has recently announced the selection of the proponent for the third-party manager position, and agreement negotiations are ongoing. PRITCO's 23 fiscal plan, certified on May 26, incorporates the implementation of various initiatives, most importantly, the engagement of a third-party manager, meaningful favorable adjustments to the CapEx and DDEC fee forecasts, and a strategic path for PRITCO to achieve fiscal plan targets and utilize multiple studies that have been completed to improve its operations. The fiscal year 24 certified budget for PRITCO reflects key priorities in alignment with the fiscal plan, including the implementation of the following initiatives. Supports the hiring of a third-party manager to institutionalize PRITCO's management and leasing processes to improve its operational and financial performance. Allocates appropriate CapEx and maintenance spending to bring properties up to commercial standards, while also deploying a significant amount of FEMA-related funding to fix damages caused by natural disasters. Includes CapEx adjustments agreed upon with the FOMB and PRITCO throughout fiscal year 23 to facilitate a path forward to successfully bring PRITCO's portfolios to a state of good repair and stabilize revenue and tenant occupancy while also maintaining a fiscally responsible surplus. Reappropriates $2.9 million from unused fiscal year 23 budget to support CapEx for one of FEMA projects. Build an IT module to enhance the marketing and lease of properties and support other professional service needs. Lastly, the budget renews expired leases to successfully achieve the fiscal year 24 expired lease measure milestone to provide additional payroll support to PRITCO. In addition to the 23 certified budget, PRITCO was granted extensions of one-time unused CapEx and maintenance allocations amounting to $17.1 million, which will be used to fund a one-time tenant expansion project and other out-of-pocket CapEx needs. The deployment of CapEx is complemented by PRITCO's shift in approach towards CapEx spending, prioritization, and the utilization of the various CapEx analysis conducted in collaboration with the FOMB. Additionally, the hiring of a third-party manager will support the improved management of CapEx and support the achievement of strategic targets PRITCO has set for specific projects. This budget represents an immediate opportunity for PRITCO's management to significantly improve the portfolio's overall performance through targeted initiatives and the utilization of the budgetary tools provided to execute the 23 certified fiscal plan milestones. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation of the 24 certified budget for PRITCO. Thank you.
Thank you, Janorli, and that concludes all of the budget presentations as well. Robert Mujica would like to make a remark or two at this conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of personal privilege for a second. This is my 27th budget overall, and I know that putting these together, both from the executive side, the legislative side, right, the oversight board side, is a very complicated processes. A lot of people lose a lot of sleepless nights. It's very complicated. We don't necessarily agree on how to get there. I've worked during my time as budget directors and worked in the legislature over 27 years with thousands of different staff people of all calibers. And I just want to take the opportunity, one, to thank the FOMB staff who have worked on all of these budgets. In all of that time, I have not met a more professional staff, dedicated, integrity, all with the one single-minded desire to help the island. Led by, on the Commonwealth side, led by Janorli Maldonado, on the Commonwealth side, Germán Ojeda and Elisa Guardiola, Paula Gonzalez, and Felix Gonzalo running back and forth in the legislature over the nights. And then also on the governor's side. We may not agree, and the governor pointed this out, on many things, and these things are complicated, and the process is not designed to be easy, and the Oversight Board makes it even more complicated. But the professionalism and the integrity and the candor and the honesty is the only way you can get these things done. And people, say that it's more complicated here than everyone else. I can tell you that a lot of the things that happen here are things that I've seen before. It's part of the process, and it's to everyone's credit to get it done. This stuff is hard, so I just want to thank everyone for everyone, and Fernando Bruno over there as well. I want to just thank you all. I want to thank the budget director, Juan Blanco. I want to thank the Secretary of Hacienda, all right, and the Secretary of State for all of the the hours and the conversations and the trust that you need to have in order to get these done. So you guys have done it's an amazing job. We have a long way to go. But I just want to take that opportunity to say, in my first 6 months, and this is the first Commonwealth budget, it's an impressive caliber of people who are very devoted and dedicated to our joint goal and mission, which is improving the lives of the people of Puerto Rico. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for those remarks. Does anybody on the board want to say anything further? John?
Yes.
Yes, I want to try to say it in Spanish. Good morning. This is a good day for Puerto Rico. It's another budget that we have here to serve the people of Puerto Rico. Many things in this budget that will help to move Puerto Rico toward the future, and I wanted to congratulate and say thank you to everybody who has worked so hard to achieve this budget, and especially Mr. Mujica. He put a lot of effort in directing the FOMB, and I'm very thankful for his work and the entire staff and the entire staff of the government. I am very thankful for the governor and his leadership. I don't know how to say leadership in Spanish, but I just wanted to say that it's very important that we continue working together, because the responsibilities of each group, the legislature, the governor's office, the board, the legislature, we all have to work together, because if we continue to work together, we will have a better Puerto Rico, and a Puerto Rico where people can be successful and live, and it will be very special. If we continue to work together, again, I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to be a member of the board and to be able to work with such professional staff, very intelligent people. Again, I think this is a good day for Puerto Rico.
Thank you very much, John and Robert, and I just want to one more time add my thanks to our staff as well, who's been just spectacular, and to the governor and to the governor's staff and to the legislature. It's been a long, exhausting, but very fruitful process for the people of Puerto Rico. So that concludes the substantive part of the meeting. We have time for public comments and questions if anybody would like to make comments and questions. We ask that you keep your remarks or your questions to 2 minutes if you can, and I believe we have mics that people can, I don't know whether they're going to come to you or I guess they'll come to you.
Good morning, Javier Ruajover from the Solar and Energy Storage Association. Quick comments to congratulate the governor, the executive director, chairman, board members on the evident spirit of collaboration on budgetary processes. It feels different from other processes, and so that is a win for Puerto Rico. So congratulations. If I can switch to Spanish for some comments also.
Sure.
I would like to emphasize how thankful we are as a sector thanks to the governor and his team for their commitment to overcome the prior fiscal plans and achieve what is being discussed now, which is a reduction in the debt of PREPA to the benefit of the entire country, which means that there will be a lower monthly payment. And who knows, maybe we can continue to discuss this so that it will be even lower. Evidently, also the leadership of the FOMB has been critical in this. And also I would like to emphasize how the governor, since day one, has defended the energy reform of Puerto Rico. We see the progress that has been made in the process, and including better prices for everybody, energy resilience for all, and particularly his commitment to the renewable energy sector in Puerto Rico, which has been in place since day one, and position against solar taxes and increases to consumers. So we wanted to state this because we acknowledge the arduous and difficult daily work of the governor and his team, and also the more recent spirit of collaboration that we have seen from the board more recently. I wanted to state that.
Thank you very much for those remarks.
There's another in the podium. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this presentation. My name is Carla Gomez Briones from the University of Pittsburgh. I have been studying everything related with PREPA and with this transformation. So I think this public board meeting is essential for us. So as Mr. Mujica explained, PREPA forecast revenue will decrease significantly from 2023 to 2024. And you mentioned several reasons, but one of the reasons you said was the adoption of solar, right? Rooftop solar. But precisely as your governor mentioned, we need an aggressive adoption of renewable energy to comply with Act 17, which aims to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2050 with an interim goal of 40% by 2025. My question for you is, what is going to be the position of the FOMB toward this matter? As for one side, we know that the main goal of the board is to repair the shareholders, to achieve responsible fiscal responsibility, but I'm concerned that this mission that you have maybe or will hinder the pathway of Puerto Rico to achieve resilient and renewable energy by 2050. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Should I start? I'll just make a couple quick comments. One is, the Oversight Board has been 100% in favor of renewables from the very beginning, which is, as Andrew and I can both attest, almost 7 years now. We are absolutely in favor of renewables. Important to keep in mind that means both PREPA generating electricity through renewables and customers using renewables as well. So it comes from both places. But we are fully in support of renewables, and we're not doing anything to undermine renewables.
And one thing that I'll say, and let me turn to Spanish again, if you allow me. I'll start in English and then I'll turn to Spanish. I personally am keeping track obsessively in terms of the increase of renewable energy generation in Puerto Rico, because I definitely want to meet that 40% benchmark or renewable portfolio standard set by Law 17, okay? And I'll just give you a couple of stats that are very relevant. Right now, the solar systems that we have on rooftops in Puerto Rico have a generation capacity of about 500 megawatts. Let's start there. Right now, we have about 100 megawatts of installed capacity already in industry scale renewable energy, wind farms, solar farms installed. That's 600 already. There's 100, or it's about 90, but let's round that up. There's about 100 being built right now of another, that's a solar farms. So that's about altogether 700 megs. The first tranche of the renewable energy, industry scale renewable energy projects that the PREP, the Energy Bureau, blessed, as well as the board, because of different reasons. Originally was intended to generate roughly like 850 megs. It's going to end up generating about 700 megawatts of additional power. So let's add that because it's already, this is in the final stages of negotiation, and the contracts provide for those systems to be operating within 2 years. So that's before the end of 2025 that I'm keeping an eye on. So that would be 700 more. The next tranche, it's not at the, it's already in the process of the PREP hired an independent entity to actually negotiate, adjudicate that tranche. It's going to generate 700 megs more. And I'm not adding everything, but I'll mention that there's also in the making a project or projects involving agrivoltaics. Agrivoltaics are irrigation systems coupled with solar systems for farms in Puerto Rico. And that, very conservatively, probably will be generating 500 megs within that time frame. If I simply add what I just told you, it adds 260 megawatts of renewable energy capacity, definitely in the pipeline, which could be definitely in operation by 2025. I am not including the solar systems that will continue to be installed through federal incentives that we, CDBG-DR, and MIT incentives that we have allocated for this purpose, as well as the pending or upcoming Department of Energy program for $1 billion for solar systems. So if I add that, it's probably easy. 400, no more, but it's, let's say 400. Let's round it up. 3,000 megawatts of renewable energy generation, definitely by end of 2025, being very conservative. That number, by the way, coincides with usually peak demand in Puerto Rico, which is usually about 3,000 megawatts. So you will be seeing in Puerto Rico through different initiatives, renewable energy generating up to that same amount. Some might say, oh, well, but renewable energy is not as consistent as traditional generation. Well, I didn't add it up, but we're also acquiring batteries, doing RFPs, requests for proposals for battery systems, which will ensure that this generation is more reliable, more consistent than usual. So the bottom line now in Spanish,
I'm completely committed to achieving the goals established in Act 17 of 2019, which established the public policy for the energy system in Puerto Rico. I am obsessively following up on all of the renewable energy programs in Puerto Rico. I am convinced that we can achieve that goal, even though we have a lot of prophecies about disaster and people who are pessimists unnecessarily But it's not going to be done just with putting solar on roofs, because that's not enough. We also need to have solar farms. We need to have other types of renewable energy projects. We're going to use the federal funding we have available to incentivize this. And I'm betting on us. I'm betting on us. This transformation will happen. Something that I must say when we talk about Genera. Look at the way in which that contract was drawn up. It has intense incentives. And we pay Genera based on incentives so that they reduce energy costs. And the way they can reduce it the most is closing fossil fuel generation plants in Puerto Rico, because if they close plants, the operational cost for the PREPA will be lower through Genera, and then they'll get bonuses if they do that. So even Genera is tasked with achieving efficiency via a change in our generation system. So turning plants off, those that work on fossil fuels that are costly and pollute. So I'm very positive. Even though we have people who might, for whatever reasons, be doubting or think that with putting solar on roofs, everything will be resolved. No. There's an electrical grid that we need to maintain, which is the one that brings power to the humble people in the center of Puerto Rico and everywhere. We're going to encourage microgrids, but they need to be connected to a main system either way. So I'm going to be paying close attention to the public discussion, because sometimes messages are too simple. And what they're doing is driving specific agendas that are not pragmatic. And for me, what's pragmatic is to comply with that law. So that for 2025, 40% of the energy in Puerto Rico will be generated from renewable sources. So you can count on that.
Thank you, Governor. Robert Mojica wants to say a few words as well.
Just to answer the question of the questioner, there is no conflict between Act 17 and the movement of renewables and the board's mission. And what the board has said is we will look at the data and amend our plan subject to what the data says, which is exactly what the board has done. The data came in, shows that load has changed, renewables have increased dramatically, even on the rooftop solar has actually increased dramatically in the last year, which resulted in changes, and that had to result in changes to the plan of adjustment that the board has approved. So there's not a conflict there. The board has always said we're going to look at the data and deal with the data as it is, and that is exactly what we just did. As the governor points out also, reliability is important, and that is why between the private operators and now the public regulator, they will make determinations on what to do in this space. The law is the law, and we need to comply with the law. And that is what the board is doing, and I think that it's reflected in the revised plan of adjustment, which is just reflective of that's what the data shows, and we had to adjust accordingly.
Thank you, Robert. Are there additional apparently no more public comments or questions, so we've completed all the work we had on our table for today, so all we need to do is, there is one more, okay. Just in the nick of time.
Hello. Okay, yeah,
Hi.
It works. Thank you all. My name is Jean LaFontaine Santos. I'm here as a concerned citizen and resident of Puerto Rico. I just want to acknowledge and first of all thank the board for hearing what on the ground our people have been saying for months with regard to the depth adjustment plan and the proposed electricity rate increases. We're living in a historic moment where we're seeing sectors that normally don't sit at the table together, commercial interests, labor unions, environmental groups, and the religious sector all coming together and basically saying the same thing, which is that what was proposed was not feasible for our economy. So I want to first start by expressing my appreciation that you all heard what the people have been saying. It's a good first step. Nevertheless, I have some questions and worries because as the claim has been on the ground, we recognize that any and all light bill increases and any and all pension cuts to the folks who are retired from Prepa's, former workforce would be tremendously impactful and disastrous upon our people who are already living in a cost-burdened way. So I have two questions. My first question is, and I'm going to look at my notes really quickly. My first question is, are light bill increases and pension cuts still on the table, and then what kinds of increases and what degree of pension cuts and/or not fully funding of pensions are on the table? And then second, what is the minimum claim to which bondholders are entitled, and what steps are you all taking to negotiate from a position of strength to ensure that as the people of Puerto Rico who are already living in a cost-burdened way, the new debt adjustment plan has as small of an impact as possible, and ideally no light bill increases to either the residential or the commercial sector on the island?
Thank you very much, both for your kind words and for your questions. I'll just say a few words and then turn it over to Robert or other board members who would like to say more. Starting with the debt, our approach from the beginning has been that PREPA has to be sustainable for the long haul. So we cannot agree for PREPA to pay any more than will leave PREPA sustainable in the long run. And that means it has to be affordable for customers, because if it's not affordable for customers, then lots of bad things happen, which is not in the best interest of PREPA or the people of Puerto Rico. So that's been our approach from the beginning. We can't wipe out the debt to zero because the creditors have rights under the bankruptcy laws, just as the people of Puerto Rico and PREPA have rights. And when we have gotten new information, we've changed our numbers. And the new information that we have gotten in the last several weeks has suggested PREPA cannot afford to pay even as much as we had earlier thought. And that's what you see reflected in the announcements we've made and the changes that will be made to the plan of adjustment. With respect to the pensions, the plan that we've proposed would not cut pensions at all. It would look just like what was done with pensions in the Commonwealth plan of adjustment, which is to shift from a defined benefit to a defined contribution approach. So to freeze the current accruals, but just shift the form of the pension and give retirees and other pension beneficiaries 100 cents on the dollar. There would be some adjustments, so they would lose cost of living adjustments, but they would get 100 cents on the dollar, just as has been the case with the Commonwealth, which is, when you think about it, is pretty remarkable. The pensions across the board are radically underfunded. Unfortunately, years and years of the government and PREPA and other instrumentalities failing to set aside the money that they needed to fulfill the promises they made have left the pensions in horrendous condition. It is little short of a miracle that they have been protected as much as they have. No pension cuts, as I believe the governor was talking about earlier. In the Commonwealth Plan of Adjustment, we created a trust fund to set aside a portion of the Commonwealth's revenues to make sure that there will be enough money to pay those pensions, even if things get worse in the future. So the result for pension beneficiaries, I think, is remarkable. They lose a little bit, but it's remarkable that we've been able to protect as much as we can. you want to add to that? Or?
I'll be brief, trying to add on some of his comments. Yogi Berra said way back, it ain't over till it's over. And sometimes, and we're paying attention to people, protesting or economists opining. We pay attention. I pay attention. And I'm sure the board pays attention. And we respect that. But this process, this debt restructuring process hasn't ended. And actually, you can see that throughout the process, there has been significant change. And in the final analysis, Judge Traylor Swain will be the one confirming or not confirming a plan of adjustment. And one thing that I am sure the judge will be taking into account is that the plan of adjustment is sustainable, is affordable, okay? It's reasonable. The judge has already been looking at what's the option for creditors, and she figured that even if they pursued litigation and got a trustee, they wouldn't get that much, they wouldn't get what they were saying they would be getting. I'm talking about the bondholders. Last thing she decided, which is very important, is she told bondholders, hey, you can submit a claim for 2.388, it's like $2.4 billion. Submit a claim. That's what they're going to be getting at the end in the final analysis. This is being litigated. The board will be submitting an amended fiscal plan, I believe, on or about July 15th. Bondholders will be opining, others will be opining, and the judge will be the one making the call. One thing I have repeated many times now is that Promesa says that any plan of adjustment needs to comply with local law. And the law that I keep talking about, Law 17 of 2019, says that in Puerto Rico, the Energy Bureau is the entity that sets electricity rates, adjusts the cost of electricity every quarter, and that's the law of the land in Puerto Rico. So when the time comes, it hasn't arrived yet, we'll know how much debt PREPA will end up having to pay. And we'll know how much debt PREPA will have to pay yearly. And today you saw a budget that they approved, that it had revenues and expenses. Actually, the revenues exceed the expenses. When the time comes, part of the expenses will include what's called the debt service, meaning it's like the mortgage payment that PREPA will have to make. What I'm saying is, I am sure that through efficiencies, like what we were talking about, closing plants that are contaminating and too expensive to operate, among other things, plus better practices in purchasing fuel for PREPA. I mean, let's not start from the premise that there's going to be a significant increase in the cost of electricity in Puerto Rico because of this restructuring. I refuse to take that assumption because we're not there yet. The Energy Bureau will be the one ensuring that PREPA is paying its bills, including whatever debt bill it ends up paying, but we'll be fighting so that plan of adjustment is a fair plan of adjustment when push comes to shove. So that's my answer to you. Count on, don't doubt that we're keeping an eye on the cost of electricity, and we will make everything, at least my government will do everything it can so that there's no significant increase. If anything, a downward movement, because our goal is 20 cents per kilowatt hour at most for all in Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Governor. Any other comments? Any other questions? questions? Thank you very much for the question and the comments. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. We really appreciate your joining us. So we just now need a motion to adjourn so we can close.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say yes. Yes. All opposed, say no. Hopefully it carried. But I think we're quitting
Dr. Rosa
whether
said
it
yes,
carried
right?
or not.
Right, Dr. Rosa?
Thanks again, everybody. And we'll have, I believe, a press conference as usual in a few minutes.